These are the best and worst legends in Apex Season 18. As always, this of course is just my opinion on the matter, so if I don't put your main in S tier, don't get too upset. Let's begin. Starting off in D tier. First up is Ashe. Now Ashe right now might be the weakest legend in the game, and I know some of you like her, but we gotta get real for a minute. Her kit all around just pales in comparison to a lot of the other legends. Her one-way portal just isn't good enough when stacked up against other movement abilities, and many of you have also heard my qualms with it around how sensitive placing the portal can be. Beyond all of that, her tactical, which was improved a couple seasons ago, just doesn't move the mark too often in fights. The best part about it is the 20 damage it deals, but the hindrance of movement that it's supposed to cause doesn't do a heck of a lot, so I'm putting her in D tier for now. Second in D tier, I've got Vantage. Now, don't get me wrong, her sniper is very strong, but it still needs something to make it more worthwhile to use her. Right now, when you compare her sniper to other ultimates, it just feels, I don't know, something feels off. Like, it's still high risk, high reward with that ability, whereas other ultimates, they don't have that component as much. It's mostly because it's a weapon, but it only has 5 bullets. It's much different than even Ramparts, whose, yes, is another weapon, but it's like a turret. You have so much more ammunition, so there's more room for error. Vantage's tactical is also, I don't know, it's okay, but it's nothing crazy. That's why we don't see a ton of Vantages running around, because we have a legend like Horizon whose tactical is like 10 times better than Vantage's. So right now I have her in D tier. I would love to see some buffs for Vantage. I don't know what direction they'll take her in, but I'm eager to see what they do in the future with her. Third in D tier, I have Octane. With Revenant's new tactical basically being equivalent to Octane's ultimate, it's hard for me to sit here and say that he's a great legend, but I know he is a very fun legend to play, and there is certainly some great potential for some advanced movement mechanics while using Octane. Overall, he's pretty weak though for the average player, and certainly at a high level, I don't see him too often. Of course, there are some pub stompers who love to run Octane, and they pull off some crazy movement, and they could tap strafe, they could do all this crazy stuff, but overall, the average Octane is not good, and that's because his kit is just not that great. I will say though, with Revenant's rework, it seems that Apex is leaning more and more into the movement side of the game, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw an Octane buff in the future, where they buffed his jump pad or did something with his stim. Something to give him a little bit more love. But they could also not do this as well, because he still to this day has a fairly high pick rate. Okay, now moving on to C tier. I have quite a few legends, but to start it off, I've got Fuse. Fuse's ultimate sucks, and I really thought hard about this. I was going to put him in D tier, but I was a little bit more gracious with him. His tactical is decent, but it's often used at the expense of not shooting your weapon, which isn't too smart. Now, I know that's more about the player than the legend, but I think there's something there where the legend can incorporate some bad habits for the player. However, tabling that for a moment, his passive and personality is by far the best part about him, but I will say it's been several seasons now without any changes to his kit, so I would love to see something helpful for Fuse in the near future. At the very least, I think tweaking his ultimate so it's just more consistent and has more of a skill gap to it would go a long way. Next in C tier, I've got Watson. Now, nothing has changed for Watson in Season 18, and I know there are some crazy Watsons out there who can find some great ways to outplay enemies with her fences. She's just overall not a super aggressive legend. Now, of course, you can be aggressive with her, but she definitely could use some buffs. The controller legends are situational at best, and if you get them in the right situation, well, they'll thrive. To me though, it's about how often are those situations something that you can facilitate. If it's not too often, then the legend isn't very good. Now, third in C tier, I also have Rampart. Rampart is, of course, another controller legend, so she is also situational at best. I will give her this though. Sheila, her ultimate is certainly like S tier. That thing shreds, and there's not much you can do about it when a good Rampart has you pinned down with one. It's the rest of her kit though that I think is kind of lackluster. The walls, the putting them down, and if you progress forward, you've got to take them back, but you have to be by the wall to take it back. Her passive isn't that thrilling anymore now that LMGs aren't super good, but I will say the Spitfire this season is a beast, so if you are playing Rampart, certainly pick up the Spitfire. But I've got her in C tier. I don't know what they could do to this legend, make her much better without her really just not fitting into the game, but I don't know, there's got to be something that can be done. So C tier for now. Next up is Mad Maggie. Now, they nerfed Mad Maggie a little bit this season. They increased the cooldown to her ultimate by 30 seconds, so now it takes 2 minutes to get her Wrecking Ball. I don't know why they made this change. Her wrecking ball is by far the worst part about her kit. It's incredibly inconsistent. Most of the time it winds up hitting Maggie or her teammates, which causes them to get stunned, or if it hits Maggie, she takes damage to it. It's kind of a disastrous ultimate. But I do think Maggie is fun. I think she has potential to be more like A tier because of her passive, because of how shotguns got buffed, and her tactical's pretty strong, especially because it's pretty widely applicable. All you have to do is get an enemy behind a door or some piece of cover, and that thing is definitely going to cause some havoc. But due to the nerf to her ultimate and just how incredibly inconsistent it is, I gotta leave her in C tier for now. Okay, next in C tier, I've got Newcastle. I put Newcastle fairly low last season and I got a lot of flack for it, but I never really see Newcastle in my games. Look, his abilities are good. He's a supportive legend. He's not used a heck of a lot. He's not a very fun legend, and his ultimate is also pretty sensitive, just like Ash's is. His tactical and passive are the better parts about him in my eyes, and there probably could be an argument to be made that he's more like B tier or A tier if he's just spam rezzing his teammates over and over and has like a purple or gold knockdown shield. But beyond that, overall, he doesn't move the mark a ton for me. I'm leaving him in C tier. Sorry to all you Newcastle mains out there. Next up is Ballistic. Now, first off, why did they nerf his tactical? I understand his tactical is frustrating to go up against, but I don't really see a need for them to nerf it. I certainly wish it was a different mechanism altogether than overheating somebody's weapon, especially in a first-person shooter game. But putting that to the side, I didn't really understand the nerf and why he received one. His ultimate is good, and I may have underestimated it previously. I don't believe it's S tier, but it's definitely helpful, and it's on a fairly short cooldown too. It's also pretty cool that it applies to Ballistic's teammates as well, and he's really just a run and gun aggressive legend, so he's fun for pub stomping, and he could be decent in ranked, but I never really saw a ton of him in Masters and above. I can't imagine with his nerfs to his tactical that he'll be played more this season, so I'm left wondering why, and for that reason, he's going into C tier. All right, second to last in C tier is Crypto. I would have loved to see a buff or two to Crypto in Season 18, but it takes about 30 seconds to get his drone back once it's been destroyed. I think that's far too long. I think Crypto is a methodical, a strategic, and certainly a strong legend with a coordinated squad. He's not super fun to solo queue with. I mean, he's not super fun in totality, but particularly while solo queuing, he's very frustrating because Crypto will either make or break a squad if that squad isn't coordinated enough. So for now, I've got him in C tier. I think his ultimate's strong, and his ability to scan the survey beacons to find out where enemies are on the map is certainly OP, but all recon legends can do that. Now, speaking of recon legends, this is the last legend I have in C tier. That is Seer. Now, Seer received a ton of nerfs after being kind of reworked last season, but they nerfed the heck out of his tactical. They nerfed the slow duration down to 0.5 seconds when it previously was 2.5. They reduced the silence down to 8 seconds. It previously was 10. And they also messed with the firing speed of the tactical itself. I think right now Seer might be B tier, but I gotta go C tier because I'm not gonna bet on a bunch of Seers running around in Season 18. And if he still is, Houston, we have a problem. We've had far too much of Seer in the last year plus. I would love to see a new legend step into the limelight, and I would love to see Seer take a back seat. He's really frustrating to go up against, and they have continuously made him really strong in certain ways that are kind of head scratcher moments, honestly, but I gotta leave him in C tier for now. We'll see how he plays out for the rest of the season though. Okay, now moving on to the middle of the road legend, B tier. First up is Gibby. Now with the recent buff to Gibby's ultimate, which they basically decreased the cooldown from 4.5 minutes to only 3 minutes, I mean, that's gotta result in Gibby being picked more this season, especially for that supportive role on the squad. Gibby may not be the most fun legend to play, but he has some serious stopping power when it comes to helping out his squad and taking on 1v1s. He's fortified, he has that gun shield, he has that bubble for some quick cover on the fly or a necessary reset, and we can't forget that he has the support class perks, being able to craft banners, access to those extended supply bins to get extra shield batteries. I mean, all of these things make Gibby a great pick if you're trying to play that supportive role for your squad. Now, I wouldn't particularly recommend him for solo queuing, but if you've got a squad and you want to fulfill that role, Gibby's an excellent pick this season. Second in B tier is going to be Bangalore. Now, Bangalore got a slight nerf this season. They increased the cooldown on her Rolling Thunder ultimate to 240 seconds. That's an increase of 1 minute. Now, once again, I don't know why they felt this was necessary. Potentially it has something to do with ALGS and the amount of Bangalores that were being played. Maybe they didn't like all the stunning effects that it was happening late game and the blurred vision and make it tough for players to see what's going on if they got hit with a Bangle. I have no idea. I'm just speculating here, but it feels like a really weird change. I feel like a lot of people, and even the devs have said this, that Bangalore is like the epitome of a balanced legend. So this is a really interesting change. For this change alone, I gotta think B tier, but I thought about C tier. Her smoke is still strong. She's got that double time. Her ultimate's still what it is. It's just gonna take longer to get it. So I think she's a middle of the road pick, but certainly not as good as she previously was. Third in B tier, we have Mirage. Now I know a lot of you guys are gonna think, what the heck? This dude put Mirage in B tier, but yeah, Mirage has a really high 1v1 potential. The decoys bamboozle a lot of people, and if you don't see Mirage use his ult, it can be really tough to figure out who he is in that early stage, resulting in Mirage usually landing the first blow. Not to mention, Mirage has a great revive passive. This is also really tough to detect if a player doesn't see him begin to revive. I played a lot of Mirage in high-level ranked last season, and I know ranked overall was kind of a joke, but I really enjoyed him. And I think that on a certain level, Mirage is underestimated and undervalued. Is he going to be picked in ALGS? Of course not. Will he ever be? The devs said no, but I still think for pubs and for ranked, Mirage is a strong legend. So he's going B tier for now. Next up is Revenant, and Rev's new abilities have proven to be pretty refreshing in a season where we didn't get a new legend. His tactical is much better than his previous one, and I think his ultimate is too. There were many times where I was fighting a Revenant in his ult, and I couldn't believe just how long it was taking to down him. It does feel a little bit weird having an ultimate that is just for him when we've been so used to the team component to his previous ultimate. But I think this new one fits more in line with the legend itself, especially since Revenant doesn't seem like the type of guy to want to have friends. The hitbox for him is still fairly large, and it gets even bigger when he's in his ultimate, so that's a reason why I don't have him in S tier or something like that. I do think there will be some crazy movement that will come from his passive and tactical combined, so look out for that in the near future. For now, it looks like the Revenant rework was fairly successful, especially when we keep in mind that he was one of the lowest picked legends in the game. Alright, next in B tier is Caustic. With the map rotation being Kings Canyon, Olympus, and Broken Moon, this doesn't really do Caustic any favors. I find him to be not as good on Broken Moon, Storm Point, and Olympus, but he is decent on Kings Canyon. It's really World's Edge where he thrives the most. But Caustic received no changes this season, and I think that B tier is a generous placement for him. He feels kinda weak these days due to some of the other legends that have moved up in the meta, and Caustic really likes to flourish in indoor engagements. If you can set traps up around entry and exit points, you can force your opponent to attack you from a specific direction or make them pay if they choose a different one where your gas is. However, with more of these maps having more wide open areas along with the building designs, they don't really favor him, so it's hard to think he will be meta in Season 18. Second to last in B tier, I have Lifeline. Now, I know a lot of players think that Lifeline just isn't that good, but I definitely have to disagree here. She has one of the smallest hitboxes in the game, which helps her significantly in gunplay. Her ultimate is the best it's ever been, although be it may not be the best ultimate. She can quickly reset her team in fights with her passive revive, and I know it's not the same as it used to be with the shield and all, but if your down teammate can get behind some cover, this res is amazing because it's automated and you can hold off enemies while your teammate is getting back up. There's no other legend that can res like that. I also think that with the ring changes this season, having a Lifeline with her drone and the ability to acquire more health meds from the support bins and her ultimate, she will be even more helpful than before. Okay, wrapping up B tier is going to be Bloodhound. Now, Bloodhound also received no changes this season, but with Seer's nerfs, I find it more appealing to run Bloodhound if you really want to use a recon legend in Season 18. The scan is still really strong for Bloodhound, and the ability to nearly always get a clue on the nearest enemy team is a huge asset, not only for yourself, but your squad mates as well. Of course, you can also scan the survey beacons to get that brief UAV over the map, and that's extremely helpful in ranked and in pubs if you're looking to run it down. I've heard some people say that Bloodhound isn't that good, and I just really disagree here. They may not be S tier, but they're still probably the best recon legend that we have to choose from. But enough about B tier. Let's move on to some of the best legends in Season 18. Starting off A tier, we have Catalyst. Now, Catalyst did receive a small nerf to her Dark Veil with a 30-second increase on the cooldown. Her tactical, though, I think is busted, and that's why I ultimately have her in A tier. Goes under doors, can only be destroyed if you have line of sight on the orb, and in the middle of it. It occupies a ton of space, takes a ton of damage to destroy, and you really can only destroy it if you're close to it. That usually puts you in a pinch between, do I shoot this orb or do I get shot by the enemy catalyst or her teammates who are near it too? I mean, her tactical has to be one of the best abilities in the game right now. And I don't love it because at times the spikes pop up and it feels like it can block some of you and your teammates' shots if an enemy's on the other side of it, but that's a whole other story. Right now, I think Catalyst is by far the best controller legend when you combo her tactical and her passive reinforcing of doors. This is huge when it comes to holding down an area or just severely outplaying and splitting up an enemy team. It takes people a lot of time when they try to break down these doors, and that is time that you can use to your advantage. A lot of people think that Catalyst is so good because of her ultimate, and while I don't think it's the worst ultimate in the game, for me, why I have her in A tier is really her tactical and her passive. The ultimate is certainly a bonus, but it's not my favorite ability in the game. Second in A tier is Valkyrie. Valkyrie also received no changes this season, and while she may feel a little boring at the moment, she's still a solid legend. Now, of course, she's not as good as she once was, but I have a hard time agreeing with the folks who think that she's useless just because they added something like an evac tower in the game. I don't buy it for 1 second. Listen, her jetpack is still a solid use of mobility, and a Valkyrie has a different mechanism which can allow for takeoff when an evac tower may not. What I think is honestly really strong is the flexibility to either use her ultimate or an evac tower, or combo them both. I think this will be huge because of the ring changes, moving faster, and in a rank match, people are more coordinated. So you might get that evac tower shot down. Your other teammate might call one in if you get to use that, and then you have to use Valk's ult. You just have a mega rotation right there. So A tier for now. All right, third in A tier is Pathfinder. And Pathfinder did receive a pretty big nerf to his zipline. They added 60 seconds to his zipline gun, so it's now 180 seconds for him to get his ultimate. However, if this was just the case, Path would go down another tier, or maybe even more. But because of his passive and the ability to just scan care packages to get his zipline back instantly, I don't think this nerf is going to hit him too hard. And yes, his hitbox is still extremely large, but nothing in this game beats a Pathfinder grapple. It's the best use of mobility. It has the largest skill gap. You're able to pull off some crazy movement with it, and it's super handy when you want to push into a team or catch that one guy who's low behind some cover, or grappling out, getting to some safety. And last in A tier is going to be Wraith. Wraith received a small buff to her portal. They reduced the cooldown by 30 seconds, so now it only takes 180 seconds, which I think is awesome. Wraith's portal has been in a pretty weird spot. They buffed it a couple seasons ago. It got better. It still had a pretty long cooldown. The portal is just not the same as it used to be. There's just other legends that kind of took Wraith's role. She still has a high pick rate. You'll still see her a ton in pubs and somewhat in ranked, but it's not really because of her portal. Most people use her because they like her Q, they like the way she moves, they like her hitbox. So I like that they adjusted her portal a little bit. We'll see how it stacks up. I still think she's a solid legend, especially if you're playing pubs. She's pretty good in rank too, but you got to know how to navigate your team if you're playing Wraith. All right, now moving on to the best legends, S tier. All right, starting off in S tier, we have Loba. Loba did receive 3 changes this season. They increased her black market cooldown, so now it's 150 seconds. They granted a 25% ult charge when she uses an ultimate accelerant. This is up from 20% in previous seasons, and they reduced her tactical cooldown to 25 seconds when it was previously 30 seconds. Now, I love the trade-off of just improving her tactical slightly in exchange for having a little bit longer of a cooldown for her ultimate. Loba was definitely the legend I was frustrated with the most when I went up against them in ranked last season because of the ability to craft banners, because of the ability to get out and evade a fight, and obviously the ability to acquire a ton of loot. All of these things are great. The fact that she's a support legend with the perks makes her even better, especially since they made that change regarding the banners last season. But overall, when you combine mobility and the support components, I think you have an S tier legend, and that's why I got her there. And next in S tier is going to be Horizon. Now, they increased Horizon's cooldown on her black hole by 30 seconds, so it's now 210 seconds. This change is, I don't know how to feel about it. I mean, a black hole can certainly be frustrating to go up against, mostly because sometimes it feels like it's pulling you even though you're you're out of the range. Like if you got out of the range when the indicator first alerts you, and then sometimes it sucks you back in, sometimes it sucks you through walls when they said it shouldn't. Like it's just got some inconsistency. So it is frustrating to go up against. However, it's really her tactical and her passive that are really, really strong. I mean, the fact of the matter is you can queue up in the air, reset in the fight if you pop a bat, take high ground. You can have your whole team take that high ground. She's just really strong and has been. She's been continuously in the meta for the last several seasons. I would like for them to alter her gravity lift more so than the black hole, but we'll see. I still think she's S tier, and that's what I'm going with. Now, on the topic of improving your gameplay, some of you are going to want to improve your game plan when it comes to cybersecurity. Aura is the all-in-one digital security app, and they're the sponsor of today's video. If you're tired of constantly receiving spam phone calls to the point where you don't even answer your phone anymore, well, listen up. Data brokers are making a fortune selling your information to robocallers, spammers, and others who want to learn more about you, like where you live, what you're up to, and much more. Aura, however, can identify data brokers exposing your info and submit opt-out requests on your behalf. Brokers are legally required to remove your info if you ask them to, but they make it super hard to pull this off. So let Aura handle it for you. Click the link in the description, aura.com/mangoes, or go ahead and scan the QR code on the screen to get a 14-day free trial and see if your personal information has been compromised. Thanks again to Aura for sponsoring this video.